You know that feeling when you come home from a first date thinking it went amazing? The conversation flowed, you laughed together, he seemed interested. Maybe he even said, "We should definitely do this again." And then nothing. Radio silence. Or worse, that dreaded, "I had a great time, but I didn't feel a romantic connection" text that makes you want to throw your phone across the room. You replay every moment, wondering what the hell happened. Was it something you said? Something you did? And here's what's really messing with your head. You genuinely had a good time too. So why didn't he? What invisible line did you cross that turned what felt like mutual attraction into a polite rejection? Here's what I need you to understand right now. This confusion you're feeling isn't because you're bad at dating or because men are impossible to figure out. It's because most of us had never been taught the actual psychology of how attraction works in those crucial first few hours when you're getting to know someone. We think if we're nice enough, interesting enough, or compatible enough on paper, that should be enough. But attraction doesn't work like a job interview or a friendship audition. The truth is, there are specific behaviors that kill romantic tension faster than you can say, "split the check." And most women do them without even realizing it. Not because we're doing anything wrong as people, but because we're operating from the wrong framework entirely. We're trying to prove a relationship material when we should be focusing on whether there's actual chemistry worth exploring. We're going to look into the psychology behind why some first dates lead to genuine excitement and others lead to that polite brush off, even when everything seemed to go well. I'm going to walk you through the most common habits that accidentally sabotage attraction, why they happen, and most importantly, how to shift your approach so you're creating the kind of connection that actually has staying power. Because here's what I know. You deserve someone who's genuinely excited about getting to know you, not someone who's just being polite. If you're ready, I am ready. Let's go. Let's start with what's actually happening in someone's brain during those first 90 minutes you spend together. And I need you to forget everything you think you know about attraction for a minute, because most of it is probably wrong. Here's the thing. Attraction isn't logical. I know, you wish it were. You wish that being smart and funny and having your life together were enough to make someone want to see you again. But the part of the brain that decides whether someone is romantically interesting operates on a completely different system than the part that thinks you'd make a great friend or partner. When you meet someone new, their brain is constantly asking two questions. Am I safe with this person? And am I intrigued by this person? Safety comes first, always. But here's where it gets tricky. Once someone feels safe with you, their brain needs to feel that little spark of uncertainty, that sense of, "I want to know more about this person," to tip into romantic interest. This is why you can have an amazing conversation with someone, feel completely comfortable together, and still have them walk away thinking, "Nice person, but no chemistry." It's not that they didn't like you. It's that you felt too predictable, too easy to figure out. Their brain classified you as safe, but not mysterious enough to pursue romantically. Think about it this way. When you're really attracted to someone, there's always this element of, "I can't quite read them," mixed in with the good feelings. Not in a toxic way, but in an intriguing way. You find yourself wondering what they're thinking, wanting to impress them a little bit, feeling slightly more animated in their presence. That's your brain responding to the perfect cocktail of safety plus intrigue. But most of us, when we like someone, we do the exact opposite. We try to show them how easy we are to be around, how much we have in common, how well we understand them. We think compatibility equals attraction. And while compatibility matters for relationships, it's not what creates that initial romantic pull. The other thing happening in those first 90 minutes is something psychologists call thin slice judgments. Basically, people are forming incredibly detailed impressions of you based on tiny behavioral cues you're not even aware you're giving off. The way you respond to the server, how you handle an awkward pause in conversation, whether you seem genuinely confident or like you're performing confidence. All of this gets processed instantly and influences whether someone sees you as a potential romantic partner. This is why first dates feel so high stakes and why small things can have such a big impact. You're not just having dinner and conversation. You're in this intense psychological evaluation period where every interaction is being filtered through, could I see myself being physically and emotionally intimate with this person? Now let's dig into the specific habits that sabotage this process, starting with the one that kills more romantic potential than anything else I see. 1. Oversharing and emotional dumping. You know how when you feel comfortable with someone, there's this urge to open up and share your deeper thoughts and experiences? That impulse comes from a good place. You want to connect authentically. But here's what's actually happening in their brain when you launch into your therapy session on date 1. When someone shares heavy emotional content early on, the other person's brain doesn't process it as intimacy. It processes it as responsibility. Suddenly, instead of thinking, wow, I'm attracted to this person, they're thinking, oh, this person needs support. And the moment someone shifts into caretaker mode, romantic attraction takes a back seat. I need you to understand something crucial here. There's a massive difference between vulnerability that builds connection and emotional dumping that creates burden. Real vulnerability is sharing something meaningful about yourself that shows depth and authenticity. Emotional dumping is unloading your problems, traumas, or intense feelings onto someone who hasn't signed up to hold that space for you yet. Here's why this happens so much on first dates. When we're nervous or trying to build connection quickly, we think that sharing something personal will fast-track intimacy. But intimacy has to be earned over time through consistent, safe interactions. When you skip those steps and go straight to the deep stuff, it doesn't create the bond you're hoping for. It creates an imbalance. The other thing that happens is what psychologists call trauma bonding, which gets confused with romantic connection all the time. If you share something heavy and the other person responds with empathy and support, it can feel like a really meaningful moment. But that's not romantic chemistry, that's human compassion. And when someone goes home after that interaction, they're not thinking about how attractive you are. They're thinking about what you went through and feeling a mix of sympathy and concern. Now, I'm not saying you should hide who you are or pretend your life is perfect, but there's a way to be authentic without turning your date into a therapy session. Instead of sharing the details of your difficult divorce, you might mention that you've learned a lot about yourself through life changes. Instead of explaining your anxiety disorder, you might acknowledge that you sometimes overthink things. You're still being real, but you're not asking them to process your emotional baggage before they've even decided if they want a second date. Think about it from their perspective. They came out hoping to have fun, feel some chemistry, maybe get a little excited about the possibility of something new. If the conversation consistently goes to heavy places, they leave feeling emotionally drained rather than energized. And when someone feels drained after spending time with you, that's not exactly inspiration to clear their calendar for date 2. The timing of vulnerability matters so much more than we realize. What feels like deep connection on date 1 might feel overwhelming to someone who's still figuring out if they're even interested. But that same level of sharing on date 4 or 5, when there's already established attraction and trust, that's when it becomes truly intimate and bonding. So here's your new rule. First dates are for discovering if there's mutual interest and basic compatibility, not for processing your life's challenges together. Save the really personal stuff for when you've established that this person genuinely wants to know you on a deeper level. Because the right person will absolutely want to hear your story, just not before they've decided they want to be in your story. 2. Interviewing instead of connecting. Let me ask you something, and be honest. How many of your first dates have felt like job interviews? You know what I'm talking about. So, what do you do for work? Where did you grow up? How many siblings do you have? What are your hobbies? Do you like to travel? Question after question after question until you've basically exchanged resumes over dinner. Here's the brutal truth about this approach. It kills chemistry faster than anything else you could possibly do. And I know why you do it. When you're nervous or when there's a lull in conversation, asking questions feels productive. It feels like you're getting to know each other. But what's actually happening is you're creating this artificial dynamic where one person is the interviewer and the other is trying to give the right answers. The problem is that attraction doesn't grow through information exchange. It grows through energy exchange. When you're asking rapid-fire questions, you're essentially asking someone to perform themselves for you rather than just being themselves. And when someone feels like they're performing, they can't relax into their natural charisma and personality. Think about the conversations you have with people you're already comfortable with? Your friends, your family? Do you sit there asking them structured questions about their background? Of course not. You riff off each other. You build on ideas. You laugh at random things. You go off on tangents. That's what natural conversation feels like, and that's what creates connection. But here's what happens when you turn a date into an interview. First, you put yourself in this position where you're responsible for keeping the conversation going, which is exhausting and puts all the pressure on you. Second, you never get to see how this person naturally communicates because they're just responding to your prompts. And third, you miss all those little moments where real chemistry happens, those pauses, those shared reactions, those times when you're both just existing in the same space without having to fill every second with words. The other thing about the interview dynamic is that it makes everything feel so serious and intentional. Every question comes loaded with this underlying "are you relationship material?" energy. And when someone feels like they're being evaluated for their potential as a partner before you've even established basic attraction, it creates pressure instead of excitement. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't ask questions or show curiosity about each other. Of course you should. But there's a difference between organic curiosity and interrogation. Organic curiosity sounds like, "Oh, you mentioned you're from Portland. I've always wondered what it's like living there," and then actually listening to their answer and responding to it. Interrogation sounds like, "Where are you from? How long did you live there? Do you miss it? Would you ever move back?" Without really engaging with what they're telling you. Here's what I want you to try instead. Instead of coming with a mental list of topics to cover, come with genuine curiosity about this specific person. Instead of asking about their job, notice something about how they talk about work and respond to that. Instead of asking what they do for fun, pay attention to what makes them light up when they're talking and ask about that. And here's the secret sauce. Make observations instead of just asking questions. You seem like someone who pays attention to details is so much more engaging than "are you a detail-oriented person?" Because now they get to either confirm your observation or correct it. And either way, you're having an actual conversation instead of conducting an interview. The goal isn't to gather information about each other. The goal is to see if you enjoy each other's company and if there's something worth exploring further. And you can't figure that out through a Q&A session. You figure it out by relaxing into the moment and seeing what kind of energy you create together. 3. Excessive agreeableness and people-pleasing. This one is going to hit some of you right in the gut, and I need you to stay with me because this might be the most important thing I tell you today. How many times have you walked away from a first date thinking, "We agreed on everything," or "We have so much in common," and then been genuinely shocked when they didn't want to see you again? Here's what's really happening when you spend an entire date agreeing with everything someone says. You're accidentally erasing yourself from the conversation. And when someone can't get a sense of who you really are because you're too busy being agreeable, there's nothing for them to feel attracted to. I know this goes against everything you've been taught about being likable and getting along well with others. But romantic attraction requires a completely different dynamic than friendship or professional relationships. When someone is trying to figure out if they're romantically interested in you, they need to see your personality, your preferences, your quirks, the things that make you uniquely you. And you can't show those things if you're constantly molding yourself to match their energy. Here's the psychology behind why this backfires so badly. When you agree with everything someone says, their brain doesn't register it as compatibility. It registers it as either dishonesty or lack of substance. Think about it from their perspective. They express an opinion, and you agree. They mention a preference, you have the same one. They share a viewpoint, you enthusiastically support it. After a while, it starts to feel fake, even if you're being completely genuine. The other thing that happens is you rob them of the chance to feel impressed by you or intrigued by your different perspective. Some of the most memorable moments in early dating happen when someone shares a viewpoint you hadn't considered, or when they respectfully push back on something you said, or when they reveal a side of their personality that surprises you. But if you're agreeing with everything, none of those moments can happen. Now, I'm not telling you to be contrarian or to start arguments just for the sake of it, but I am telling you that having opinions and expressing them appropriately is incredibly attractive. When you say something like, "Actually, I see it differently," and then explain your perspective with confidence and respect, you're showing them who you are. You're giving them something real to respond to and connect with. The people-pleasing thing goes even deeper than just agreeing, though. Maybe you find yourself laughing at jokes you don't think are funny, or saying you love activities you've never tried, or downplaying your own interests because you're worried they might not align with theirs. What you think you're doing is making yourself more appealing, but what you're actually doing is making yourself invisible. Here's what I need you to understand. The right person for you is going to be attracted to your actual personality, not some agreeable version of yourself that you think they want. And if someone is only interested in you when you're agreeing with them all the time, they're not interested in you at all. They're interested in having their own opinions reflected at them, which gets boring really quickly. The most magnetic people are the ones who are genuinely themselves, who have clear preferences, who express their thoughts authentically, who aren't afraid to be a little bit different from whoever they're talking to. But that doesn't mean being difficult or argumentative. It means being secure enough in who you are that you don't need someone else's approval to validate your worth. So next time you catch yourself about to agree with something you don't actually agree with, pause. Ask yourself what you really think about whatever they just said. And then share that perspective with confidence. Say something like, "That's interesting. I've always thought about it this way." Or, "I can see why you'd feel that way, but my experience has been different." Watch how the energy in the conversation shifts when you start showing up as a real person instead of a mirror. 4. Future-focused conversation. This one makes people run faster than anything else, and you're probably doing it without even realizing it. I'm talking about those moments when the conversation shifts from getting to know you right now to let's talk about our future together. And before you roll your eyes and think this doesn't apply to you, I'm not just talking about asking when they want to get married. This is way more subtle than that. Future-focused conversation is any time you're talking about what could happen between you two instead of what's happening right now. It's asking, do you want kids someday? On date 1, it's mentioning how you think you get along with their friends. It's talking about places you should visit together. It's even something as innocent as, we should try that restaurant you mentioned when you haven't even finished the meal you're currently eating. Here's what happens in their brain when you do this. You're essentially asking them to imagine a future with you before they've decided if they want a present with you. And that creates pressure, not excitement. When someone feels like they're being recruited for a relationship rather than enjoyed as a person, their natural response is to pull back and create some space. The psychology behind this is fascinating. When you focus on future possibilities, you're operating from what's called a scarcity mindset. Like, this might be your only chance to figure out if this person could fit into your life plan. But attraction actually grows from abundance mindset, where you're curious about someone because they seem interesting, not because you're evaluating their potential as a life partner. Think about it this way. When someone brings up the future early on, they're essentially saying, I'm already thinking about where this could go, before establishing whether there's even chemistry worth exploring. And that puts the other person in this weird position where they feel like they need to either commit to possibilities they haven't even considered yet, or disappoint you by not matching your level of investment. The other thing that happens is you skip right over the fun part of early dating, that period where you're discovering each other and everything feels new and exciting. When you jump to talking about future plans, you're fast-forwarding past all the mystery anticipation that actually builds romantic interest. You're treating the relationship like it's already established when you're still in the getting to know you phase. Now, I need to be clear about something. Wanting to know someone's long-term goals and values is completely reasonable. But there's a huge difference between understanding someone's general life direction and recruiting them for your specific vision of the future. Asking, what do you love about your career, is very different from asking, do you see yourself staying in this field long-term? One is curiosity about who they are now. The other is evaluation of who they might become. Here's what I want you to focus on instead. Being fully present in the conversation you're actually having. Instead of wondering if they'd be good with your family, pay attention to how they treat the server. Instead of imagining future trips together, notice whether you're enjoying the way they think about things. Instead of evaluating their relationship potential, focus on whether you're genuinely interested in what they're saying right now. The right person is going to be excited about the possibility of a future with you, but only after they've had enough present moment experiences with you to make that future feel appealing. When you rush that process, you're not moving things forward. You're actually slowing them down by creating pressure where there should be curiosity. So here's your new approach. Date like you're genuinely curious about this person as they exist today, not as they might fit into your life tomorrow. Ask yourself, am I enjoying who they are right now? Instead of, could I see myself with this person long term? Because if the answer to the first question is yes, the second question will take care of itself naturally over time. Here's what I want you to walk away with today. You've been operating under the assumption that dating is about convincing someone you're worth their time. But the truth is, dating is about discovering whether someone is worth your time. That shift changes everything. Stop trying to be the perfect date and start being the real you. The woman who has opinions, who doesn't need someone else's approval to feel valuable, who shares her authentic thoughts and feelings at the right pace, who asks genuine questions because she's actually curious about the answers, not because she's trying to fill awkward silence. The right person for you isn't going to fall in love with some carefully curated version of yourself that you think they want. They're going to fall in love with your actual personality, the way you think about things, your unique perspective, your genuine reactions, even the ways you're a little bit different from them. And if someone walks away from the real you, they weren't your person anyway. You didn't lose anything real. You just saved yourself weeks or months of trying to maintain a version of yourself that isn't sustainable. Your job isn't to be chosen by everyone. Your job is to be yourself so clearly and confidently that the right person can't help but be drawn to you. Because when you meet someone who appreciates your authentic self, you won't have to wonder whether they're interested. You won't have to analyze their texts or worry about scaring them off by being who you are. It will feel natural and mutual and easy in a way that actually is sustainable. So go into your next date with curiosity instead of anxiety. Go in wondering what you'll discover about them, not worried about what they'll think of you. Show up as yourself, not some agreeable, mysterious, perfectly timed version of yourself, but the actual you. Because that's the only person who can create a real connection anyway. The confusion you've been feeling about dating, it's about to clear up. Because when you stop trying to be perfect and start being real, everything becomes so much simpler. The right connections will feel right, and the wrong ones won't leave you questioning what you did wrong. You'll know exactly what happened. You were yourself, and they either appreciated it or they didn't. And both of those outcomes give you exactly the information you need. Now go out there and let someone discover how incredible you actually are.